I wanted to talk with you about this story, which is predicated on a friend of mine who had a relationship with a Filipina, and he lost a good chunk of his monthly income to her. And I wanted to really talk about the whole story, how it came about, how the relationship came about, and then at the end of the video I'm going to give you some takeaways. Now, this story happened to my friend Phil, and I'm going to change the names now because I don't want my friend get in trouble, because it can be dangerous to expose those kind of things in the Philippines. So let's just say his name is Phil and his ex-girlfriend's name is Maria. So Phil and Maria met in the Philippines, but there's a preview to this, obviously. So he was in a relationship with a Thai, and he was trying to have kids, and unfortunately he couldn't. And he also wasn't that much into the relationship anymore, and he thought it was time to move on to a different country. It's very easy to date younger women there, and so he thought, yeah, maybe going to the Philippines is not such a bad idea. Well, before he went to the Philippines, he met this girl online. She was 18 years old, and they've been talking for weeks and weeks and weeks before he went there, because that's the typical game foreigners get involved in before they land on the islands. They want to have somebody there to pick them up from the airport. They want to have somebody warmed up before they get there. So I totally understood why he did that. It's very typical, very normal to do, in fact. So he had this girl that he was talking to, and that's exactly what happened. He landed in the Philippines. She picked him up from the airport. From day one, they had sex, and they stayed together from day one, and she didn't move out for, I think, 3 years or so. So they were together for 3 years. But anyway, so he was trying to have kids with his ex-girlfriend, and he wasn't able to. And so he thought, well, maybe there's an issue on my end. Well, he never did a fertility test, like a sperm quality test. Neither did his ex-girlfriend, the one that he was together with in Thailand. Neither did she ever do any fertility testing to really know if it was on her side or his side. Got her pregnant, and it didn't take too long, actually. And then he was like, well, I think now it's clear that I was not firing blanks. I was actually firing real bullets. I was not firing blanks. That really came as a surprise to him, because he thought it was on his side. But anyway, that happened after a few months. She got pregnant, and then so he brought her to the hospital, for some checkup, because that's what you do when your girlfriend gets pregnant, right? You take care of her, and you make sure that everything is fine, that you get the right advice, the right guidance, the right mentorship, if you will. So he did that. And it was at that point that he learned that his girlfriend was not 18 years old like she claimed she was. She was just 16 years of age. He dropped his jaw. I mean, in all seriousness, he dropped his jaw when he learned that, because she lied to him about her age. And of course she lied about it, because if she would have told him what her real age was, he would never have dated her, because it's illegal to date a woman below 18 in the Philippines. You're not allowed to do that. That really threw him off, completely threw him off. I mean, first of all, it created this real distrust, this real distrust of, not believing in anything she said anymore, because why would he believe in anything anymore? If she lied about the most basic stuff, he's probably going to lie about other things too. That really killed him. And how he learned about it was even worse. It was really worst case scenario. Got her pregnant, went to the hospital, and that's when he learned how old she was. And that was really bad for him, of course. And it got a lot worse after that, because, if you're at that age, if you're 16 and you get pregnant, I mean, you're still a kid yourself. You can't really take on the responsibility of, handling a child if you can't even take care of yourself. And that's when he really learned how naive he was by sleeping with this girl and, not confirming her age, because he could have asked for her identification card. And if she would have said, no, I'm not going to show you my ID, then, a lot of red flags would already, pop up, because why wouldn't she be willing to show it, if what she told him was actually true. That's how, how she really created this distrust, and when he just didn't want to be together with her anymore. But it actually got worse. What made it a lot worse was the simple fact that, when that happened, she got so emotional, and she put all this pressure on him that he has to take care of the baby. And of course he was going to take care of the baby, because why wouldn't he? It was his responsibility to take care of the baby. And to make matters even worse, her relatives just came knocking on their door all the time, asking for money. Asking for money money so they can buy food, spend money on repairing the house that they had. He made a little bit of a mistake too, because he moved in the same neighborhood they lived in, which was a mistake. I mean, he didn't move into the same house, which would have been much worse, but he moved into literally a town that's not a really famous town in the Philippines, and there's not a whole lot of foreigners living there. And he kind of learned the cold hard truth that that was also a mistake, that he moved into this town, into this little village, you know. I'm not sure how big it is, but he said there wasn't a whole lot of foreigners living there. And so he got the pressure from the kid, obviously, you know, having to take care of all those expenses and having to take care of the family too. And, you know, he's a really nice guy. He really wasn't able to say no, which of course people abuse. You know, if you are very generous, if you're very nice, then people are gonna take advantage of you even more than, you know, if you are like a tight ass, you know, if you are very tough when it comes to money, if you're not loose at all, then people are gonna mind you, you know, then people are really gonna, you know, stay away from you if that's the case. So he just had expense after expense after expense, like, and then she started asking for money too. She started asking for money to buy her clothes, to buy her a phone, to buy her a laptop, and he couldn't take it anymore. So, but they stayed together for a couple of years. It was all about money. That's all it was about. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about building a happy family. It was all about money. And he took care. He paid for everything. He paid for their place. He paid for their food. He paid for the child, for everything. Even for the relatives he paid, even though he shouldn't have done that anyway. You know, who is he to support all those people? You know, it's not like he's a millionaire. But anyway, they took advantage because he was a foreigner. And that was really sad. And after time, he couldn't take it anymore. They separated. And that's when things became even more difficult, because she started asking for more and more money, because he moved her. I mean, that's just how nice of a guy he is. He moved her into a place so she can stay with the baby in her own place, not having to live with her parents, her family in the village. I mean, he has done such a good job. So he moved her in that place. You know, it wasn't a really fancy place. It was maybe a place that cost $200 a month. So he paid for that. Plus, he also gave her, I think, about $450 a month, you know, so she could live there by herself and also the son. I mean, he did more than any other guy would have been willing to do in this situation, you know. He didn't find a way to stay with her anymore, but he paid for his place and then her place and the son too. And so she can live too, because she didn't work, you know. She didn't work. She could have probably worked, you know, but in the Philippines, you know, even if you work like a dog, you're not going to earn much money. You know, you're going to earn maybe $50 to $100 a week if you're lucky. If you're very lucky, you can earn $100 a week, but it's not likely. It's just not likely. So he took care of all of this. And then she started asking for more money. And then he's like, well, I can't give you more money because I don't have more. You know, he only has limited income. It's not like he's making $10,000 a month. And then she was like, well, if you don't give me more money, I'm going to go to your embassy and tell them that you're not giving me enough money, and I'm going to get you deported. And that really scared the hell out of him. And she used that, and he still wasn't able to pay more. A man can only do what he can do. He already gave her more than what he should have, and she still wasn't happy. Anyway, that's what happened, and he got so fed up with her that now he's just paying child support, whatever you want to call it. And it is a sad story because, you know, he thought he couldn't have kids, and, you know, he thought by him being generous, people would treat him better. He thought that by him being nice and by him still doing all those things after they had split up, I mean, he got her own place, paid for it, plus an allowance for herself and the son. Her son. I mean, it's just crazy. And how a woman would still ask for more and more and more and still not be satisfied with what she had. And what she could have done instead would be, you know, to just give the child to her parents, her grandparents, so they can take care of the child while she goes out to work for, who knows, even if it's just a few hours a day, try to bring in some extra income. She didn't do that. And that's a sad story of a guy that was just looking to build a family, looking to capture authentic, genuine love, who got screwed. What I really want for you is to obviously not make the same mistakes, right? So whenever you go to the Philippines, I mean, or whenever you go to any country, you know, whenever you want to marry any girl from any developing country, you got to have a game plan. You know, what's your budget? If you only bring in, say, $1,200, $1,500 a month, if you only have 1,000 euros a month, only 900 pounds a month in income, you got a budget. You know, you cannot spend more than what you have. And certainly you cannot spend what you have. You gotta spend less than that. And if you have little income, go get another job. Go find something to do. It's gotta be online. If you live in a place like Thailand or the Philippines, you're probably not gonna get an offline job. I mean, unless you have really special skill, desired skill that people want. Even if you're an English teacher, you're not going to make money. There aren't enough jobs anyway, and you're not going to make enough money. So why even bother? So the only way for you to make money is through some kind of online job, some kind of online business, if you will. My advice is you're going to do that, right? You're going to just come up with a budget and you stick to it. Another thing that you just cannot do, you cannot allow other people to run you over financially. Even if it's her parents, her grandparents, her uncle, her siblings, doesn't matter. You can't allow anybody to run you over financially. They know that you have money because you're from the West, you bring opportunity, you bring wealth with you, but it doesn't mean you can support 5 or 10 other people. You know, it just doesn't work, you know, unless you're a millionaire, you can do that. But even then, why would you do that? Let people handle their own problems. Focus on yourself, your girlfriend, your wife, your children, and maybe the parents. You know, if you really want to help out her parents, you know, but you got to come up with a budget there too. You can't just give unlimited money. You cannot give money that you can't afford to lose. If they really need help sometimes, okay, don't mind, give them like $100, $200, and see it as a gift. You're never going to get it back. Whatever you give to family and friends, even if they ask you to borrow it, you're probably not going to see it again. So that's what I advise you to do. Another thing you want to consider is how soon you have a family, because if you are starting family with a person you don't know, you're really setting yourself up for a massive failure. Just because you've been talking to a girl for a couple of weeks online doesn't mean you know her. Doesn't mean she's being real. You don't know that until you've spent, I'd say, a good year together. If you've lived together for a good year, if you've been together, you know, under the same roof, and every day you have seen her, you've experienced her, you know, on her bad days, her good days, you kind of can estimate how she would react in a certain situation. You kind of know if she's appreciative. You kind of know what she would do if you're sick, if you have problems, how do you solve it? Like, so many questions arise, and you're not going to get the answers without asking the questions. It's naive to believe that you know everything beforehand because it didn't happen. That is my advice to you. Just follow this, and I'm going to bring you another story very soon. I did ask that friend of mine to come with me, you know, on YouTube to do this interview, but he rejected because he doesn't want to get involved in any problems. You know, he has already more than enough problems, and he thinks that by him disclosing himself to the general public, he would most likely trigger an emotional reaction from his girlfriend, and he told me that she is dangerous. She might even pull out the knife and come to his home and kill him. That's not kidding, that's what he told me. Anyway, that's the story. What do you think about his experience? How do you think he handled it? What would you have done in his situation? Let us know. Leave a comment below. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm uploading new videos on digital nomad locations, travel updates, and investment advice several times a week right now. I highly recommend that you grab a free copy of my latest ebook, The Nomad Elite Income Booster, your go-to guide for creating passive income streams using the internet. And if you got some more time left, check out these videos.